Hey there, kids. How are you doing? Welcome to today's class. Today is a start to a new course. In today's class, we're going to be going ahead and talking all about animation. And it's going to be a really, really exciting course and a really, really exciting start to this course. Now, animation is something that I've always wanted to go ahead and talk about with you all. And today I've gone ahead and got a chance to do so. So let's get started with that. But before we get into the class and before we get into everything that we're going to do today, let's talk a little bit about the certificate program as well as your submissions. Now, coming to your certificate program, like you all know, you're getting certificates for the work that you're going ahead and doing. The first thing that you have to remember to get the certificate is that you have to go ahead and attend all of your classes. For example, this is going to be a 4-week course. So go ahead and attend all of the 4 classes to get the certificate. The second thing that you have to go ahead and remember is that you have to go ahead and do all of your submissions. If you do all of your submissions, then automatically you will get a certificate. Now, apart from all of that, I always keep talking to you about, sometimes you might have good days, sometimes you might have a bad day, sometimes you might have average days, and you still have to go ahead and do your submission, and what is the reason behind it. So as a teacher, I've been telling you that I want to focus on the concept of improvement. I want to focus on seeing you grow. Now, today's class is not going to be a lot of art, but it's going to be a lot of creativity. It's going to be a lot about, new concepts. So today's submission is going to be a little unique. And in today's submission, we're going to be looking at how creative you can get. So though it is not something to do with art, and I may not be able to see what skill you have developed or what improvement you have made in those lines, I still will be able to see how you're growing creatively, how you're innovating in your mind, how you are changing your concepts as you go along. So make sure to go ahead and do your submission. Now let's start off talking about what animation is. Let me go ahead and share my screen and show you a picture of the same. All right. Now, if you look at this picture, you can see some of the most famous examples of animation over time. Some of you might be able to recognize the first animation that we have right here, which is all about Mickey Mouse. The second one is a Tom and Jerry, and the other two are ones that we have gone ahead and seen on TV or movies. You have clips of it playing around all around. Now, let's start off with the introduction and let's talk all about what animation exactly is. Now, animation is basically a concept wherein you have figures or people or individuals or landscapes or anything that is basically there around you that is sort of created in a way that you can see motion or you can see change. You can see how the characters are moving, how the characters are growing, how they're going ahead and talking, speaking, things like that. And this normally you can see on a screen in today's day and age. So if you have an iPad or you have a computer, you have a laptop or you have a phone, you will see animation all around you. Whenever you see sort of ads that you see on TV, maybe it could be an ad of a game, or it could be an ad of a video game, or it could be an ad of a toothpaste commercial. There will be always some form of animation in it. And if it is not animation on those lines, then you might end up seeing animation on a TV. So let's say you are watching Peppa Pig, then Peppa Pig is also a form of animation. Apart from that, you also see animated movies. So if you've gone ahead and seen the movie Frozen, then that is also a very, very famous example of animation. And what basically happens in it? It basically is a way in which there's a character. So let's take Peppa Pig, for example. There is a character who's going to be there, and there are going to be subsequent characters. For example, we have Peppa, we have George, we have Mummy Pig, we have Daddy Pig, we have different characters. So what they basically go ahead and do is they create these characters, and then they go ahead and give them life. They give them meaning. So they give them characteristics, like for example, they give them beautiful eyes, they give them a certain kind of mouth, they give them certain kind of hair, certain kind of clothes, and then they go ahead and live their life. So all of this basically happens through animation. Now we will get into how animation is and different types of animation. But before that, let's talk a little bit about the history of animation and how did it basically come into play. Now, animation came into play in a way that it was created well in advance in history. So it was sort of a way of coming about and showing the concept of how movement is involved. So what happened was, back in the day, people could see movement when people were walking, people were talking, people were, going around and, living their lives. We were experiencing movement. So we were experiencing movement by probably picking up water, by probably walking, by, going to the store and buying things. But we couldn't depict this. We couldn't go ahead and showcase this to other people. So let's say I had a story in mind. Let's say I had a story of a friend that I wanted to go ahead and show to people. How would I show the movement of it? How would I go ahead and show that this is what they're going ahead and doing? I could probably show them pictures being like, okay, they are shopping, they are doing this, they are doing that. And that's just one single image. But what about the process that they're going through? What about the experience that one is going through? So that was something that, was not being able to showcase. So what they wanted to do was they wanted to come up with some format in which they could showcase all of this. Now, this goes hand in hand, obviously, with videos. When they started creating videos, obviously, you could record people doing things. But a lot of the times, what if you wanted to create someone fictional? For example, let's take Mickey Mouse. You can see Mickey Mouse is a fictional character. It is not someone who exists in day-to-day life. It's just a mouse that has been given certain kind of characteristics, certain kind of clothes. So let's say I want to say this, the story of Mickey Mouse. How would I do that? So the same thing, what they wanted to do was they wanted to create a form of animation, or they wanted to create a form of motion in which they could go ahead and showcase this movement, this story, this character living their day-to-day life. Now, in that mindset, they went ahead and started the concept of doing early stages of animation. And these early stages of animation actually date back before Christ. They go back to, your medieval times, where they went ahead and they had small versions of it. Now, this even came up before the concept of cinema. This came up before the concept of video. This came up before the concept of, these kind of visual representations. So what basically happened? So what happened was they wanted to show some form of movement. So the first kind of movement that they came up and showed was all to do with shadows. So what they used to do was they used to go ahead and have a light source right at the back, and they used to have a curtain in the front, and the people right in the middle would sort of become the shadow. So if you've ever gone ahead and created shadow puppets, for example, you've created a dog, a duck, so on and so forth, you will notice that you can go ahead and create movements with your hand. So this form of movements that you can create with your hand is basically what they use to create movement in life. So let's say they had the story of a certain human being who went to a village and, probably fought with a king, or fought with the civilians, something. Let's say he was a villain. So what they did was they had different people who would play different roles. They had a big curtain that they used to put up. They used to have a light source right at the back, and everybody used to play their roles. Now, yes, at that point of time, the animation that they had was all in black and white. It wasn't an animation wherein, there was color. It was just a black silhouette, or basically a black shadow of a person, but it was some form of representation or some form of movement. Now, after that time, wherein you had the concept of animation through, shadow play, you had different concepts that came up. One of the concepts was something that you can see in carnivals. I don't know if in today's day and age you will find these in carnivals, especially during coronavirus. We can't really go out and see this, but when I was a kid, I used to see this a lot in carnivals. It used to be sort of like a big round thing, and you had a glass in which you could go ahead and look. So when you looked inside the glass, what you could see was a normal screen. So this screen would probably have a hand painted concept. So let's say a person went ahead and hand painted the Disney character of Mickey Mouse. Then what used to happen was they used to go ahead and keep changing each glass or each film. As they kept changing each film and each glass, what happened was it started looking like the character was moving. It started looking as, there was some change that basically was going ahead and happening. So that was the newer generation generation or the newer format of animation that basically came into play. Now, over time, there were different examples that came into play. For example, like I said, there was the shadow play. They kind of changed that concept and converted that into many ways. For example, they went ahead and started using clay puppets to create shadows. They started using hands to create shadows. Then they started using props to create shadows. So for example, for a prop, like let's say I have a story of a turtle, then what they started doing was they started taking probably a rock and they attached things to the rock and created, sort of like a look that looked like a turtle but wasn't a turtle. And then they went ahead and created a shadow play with that gave the story of a turtle. So in this manner, storytelling and story representation started going on slowly, and the concept of animation basically started and moved from there. Now let's go ahead and start talking about the types of animation. Now the types of animation will also sort of represent the early evolution of animation. So let's start off with the first type of animation that we have. The first type of animation is called traditional animation. Traditional animation is basically a form wherein people used to go ahead and draw each film that was there. So like I gave you the example wherein there were different films that came up. What they used to do was they used to draw the character multiple times. So if you see this picture right here, you can see that there are 4 Mickey Mouses. One is in color and the other 3 are in black and white. So what basically used to happen is that they used to have the Mickey Mouse right at the back, one Mickey Mouse, and then they used to draw another Mickey Mouse, and slowly. So for example, they wanted to show the movement in terms of walking. So then they used to draw multiple images wherein the feet of the Mickey Mouse is different, but the body is exactly the same. So what used to happen with that is when you play this subsequently, it looks like Mickey Mouse is walking. So that was the most traditional form of animation and was the oldest kind, like after the shadow animation concept that was there. Now, this was obviously a very tedious process in terms of animation, but it was one of the most evolutionary or revolutionary forms of animation that was there. Now, though it was tedious, yes, they were trying to find out and figure out more variants of trying to figure out how they can do storytelling or how they could do animation in a better format. So what they did was they came up with different formats. So the second kind of animation type that we have here today is called 2D animation. Now, 2D animation basically is an animation form wherein they could go ahead and change in certain aspects. Now, by this time, the computer was already there and they could go ahead and sort of draw or illustrate 2D images. So what they started doing was they started changing only certain body parts. So if you look at this image that you have right here, you can notice that the man first is standing and then they're changing only the legs. So they can change the upper thigh and then the lower thigh, and then they're going ahead and changing only the bottom calves of the legs. So automatically small parts were being changed. So it was 2D because you can see it's very flat. You can't really see any 3D-ness in this. You can't see life in it. It's basically just a flat picture, but you can see change that's basically going ahead and happening. So this was the 2D format of animation that they had. Now again, as evolution came about, as change came about, they came up with the concept of 3D animation. Now this was a big boom in technology. This was basically the biggest change or the biggest revolution that happened, and obviously it was made possible only because of the concept of very high tech computers and laptops and possible softwares that basically came about. So if you look at this picture, this is a sort of Photoshop version of, if you've ever seen Photoshop, this is something on how it would look. And what they started doing was they built a character. They built, for example, if they were doing Mickey Mouse, they built Mickey Mouse. They built all the characteristics of Mickey Mouse. They made him a talking, walking character which could go ahead and do any possible thing. And what they basically had to do in order to make it a proper movie, or what they basically had to do in order to make it just a live character, was basically that they just had to go ahead and tweak a certain changes or give instructions or give demands, and automatically the character was going ahead and doing all of those things, automatically creating a 3D animated look and giving story so much life. Now obviously 3D is something that we kind of look forward to and we understand better because we live our life in 3D. So in time and in change in animation, 3D was something that was the most important because it is something that we live our day-to-day life and we don't see people in 2D, we don't see people in living in 2D, we always see people living in 3D. So seeing movies, seeing concept in 3D also made it so much easier for our understanding, for storytelling. It was sort of like an evolution. Now let's move on to the fourth kind of animation that is there, which is called motion graphics. Now motion graphics is one of the most famous or the most used animation in today's day and age. Now till now we were going ahead and talking all about characters, but what about just basic concepts? So if you look at this picture right here, you can see sort of like a hot air balloon, then you can see some form of clouds, and you can go ahead and see stars, and you can see a bunch of clouds right there in the bottom. You can see a little bit of snow. So if you've gone ahead and seen advertisements, let's say you've gone ahead and seen a Colgate advertisement, or let's say you're going ahead and seeing probably a video of some cartoon that they're going ahead and showcasing, or they're going ahead and advertising a video game. So in this, a lot of the times characters are not involved. It could be sceneries, it could be a sort of graphics of an object. So let's say I have a new phone and I want to go ahead and advertise the phone. You would have noticed there are probably water droplets flying around, or probably there are different colors coming about, or maybe the phone is moving in different sceneries. All of that is basically done through motion graphics. It's basically a form of animation that they use mostly for advertising, in which you do not have any individuals involved. You just have these kind of sceneries. You have things that are nature related. So let's say you have a tree, let's say you have birds, let's say you have mountains, you have things like that that basically go ahead and represent that form of animation. Now the last and fifth type of animation that we have, which is the most interesting form of animation, is called stop motion. Now stop motion animation has been there over time. Now it has been there from the first in like invention of animation, and it still exists even today. Now stop motion animation is like very interesting, but also a very complicated and tedious process. Stop motion basically is a concept wherein you take pictures of different things happening. So that is the concept of stop is when you take the picture, it is when you stop, and motion is when you create change. So let's take this picture that we have here right now. We have a person and we have a dog. Let's say they want to go ahead and create the concept of this man going behind the dog and the dog walking. So what they will do right now is they'll go ahead and click a picture like how they are right now. And then to create motion, what they'll do is they'll move both of these objects a little bit. Then again, they'll take a picture. Then they'll move it again, and then again, they'll take a picture. So if you remember the concept of the first concept that we had of a Mickey Mouse with the drawing and the illustration, it's very similar to that. But what happens in this is you have 3D objects, or you have 3D representations that basically go ahead and help you out in terms of the stop motion. So let's say I basically have a object, like let's say I have a phone and I want to create an advertisement for it. So let's say I want to make my phone move from one part to the other part of the table. What I can do in order to create that motion on video is I can either take a whole video, or I can go ahead and place it, click a picture, place it, click a picture, place it, click a picture, and create movement in that manner. When I play all of those films one after the other, one after the other, what it'll look like is my phone is moving. So that is the concept of stop motion. Now back in the day, like I said, they used shadows. They went ahead and used different films to create stop motion. In today's day and age, they use 3D characters like so to go ahead and create stop motion. But it's something that is really fascinating and fun when it comes to stop motion. Now, since we have gone ahead and spoken so much about stop motion, and we have gone ahead and spoken so much about the types of animation that exist, I want to now give you some famous examples of stop motion. Sorry, some famous examples of animation. Now, animation basically is something that you see around you, right? So let's go ahead and talk about few famous animations in different sections. So one, let's go ahead and talk about movies. If you go ahead and see all of your Disney movies, most of your Disney movies tend to be animated movies. So one good example could be Frozen, another could be Lion King, another could be probably Minions, another could be probably let's say Snow White and the dwarf, seven dwarfs. All of them are basically animated movies or films. Now when it comes to shows, animated shows that we have around us, the animated shows that we have around us are things like Peppa Pig, you have things like cartoons like SpongeBob, you have Tom and Jerry. All of them basically are animated. Now here is when your concept of the submission comes in. Now like I said, I want you to go ahead and be really creative with today's submission. So today's submission is going to be for you to find some famous examples of animation over time. Now this could be famous in terms of something that you're just watching. So it could be something that all of your friends and you are going ahead and watching on TV, or some movie that really caught your eye. So it could be famous just in probably in your community as well. It doesn't have to be famous all around the world. It could just be something that you and your friends watch a lot and are really fascinated by it, right? So find one animation that you can go ahead and see around you and click a picture with it. So let's say you find something on your phone, then probably ask your mom and dad to hold up the phone with you and click a picture. Or if you see something on TV, you can just pause it on TV and click a picture with it on TV. Find somewhere that you can go ahead and find some form of animation. The more unique it is, the more impressed I'll be. So make sure to get as creative as possible when it comes to finding an animation that you can go ahead and find for your submission. Now let's go ahead and move on to some facts that I have about animation. Now I have 5 facts for you when it comes to animation. The first fact that I have is the concept or the name of the word animation itself. Now, animation is derived from the French word called soul. So, what is soul? Soul is basically meaning. It's basically who I am. It's basically life, right? So, what it meant basically is that they wanted to give a life, or it's called ensoulment. So, it was basically giving a life to a character. Is basically what animation means in literal terms in French. So, how fascinating is that? Now, the second fact that I have for you is basically related to Mickey Mouse and Walt Disney. Now, if you go ahead and see Mickey Mouse, then you'll know that it's one of the most famous, you have one of the most famous characters over time that has existed, right? So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about it. Now, Walt Disney created Mickey Mouse, and it is basically all about mice, right? It's about a male mice, and then you have female mice, and they have several kinds of friends. So, how did this become a hit? Actually, it never became a hit. What basically happened was Walt Disney created the concept of Mickey Mouse, and he went ahead and started showcasing it to a lot of people. He wanted people to go ahead and showcase it in different spaces, but most of them went ahead and rejected it, because at that point of time, people who watched cinema or people who went ahead and actually watched shows were mostly women, and women were kind of scared of mice. They didn't really like mouses. So at that point of time, Mickey Mouse was actually never showcased or never shown. People did not show animation of Mickey Mouse. Over time, when people were, willing to accept the concept of Mickey Mouse, is when they started advertising Mickey Mouse as a whole. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the third fact that I have for you, which is about Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Now, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was one of the most revolutionary movies that was made by Disney, and it won the Oscars when it came to the animation. So, if you've ever seen the Oscars, it's probably like the foreign film fair. It is one of the most famous and prestigious awards when it comes to movies. And, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs won the animation award when it came to Walt Disney creating Snow White. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the fourth fact that I have for you right now, which is regarding Toy Story. Now, Toy Story, if you've ever seen it, it's about the toy, and you have these, really, really fun characters that come around. We have three parts to the Toy Story, actually, if you look today. But Toy Story was the first 3D animated film that came up in today's day and age. They did have some forms of 3D animation that did exist, but there was not complete 3D animation that was there persisting all around us, or we were going ahead and watching. So the first fully complete movie made in 3D animation was Toy Story itself. The last fact that I have for you is about Lion King. Now, Lion King, though, is a very, very famous story. It was even recreated recently, and I think most of us went ahead and watched it on TV, or went to the theater and went ahead and watched it. It was a movie that was not accepted by the community who had to go ahead and create the movie. So everybody who was shown the script, everybody who went ahead and read the script of Lion King didn't really like the concept of Lion King. They didn't really think it would end up being a hit, or they didn't really think that it would end up being something that people would want to go ahead and watch. So though Lion King was something at that point of time, as animators, they didn't want to go ahead and create. They were very reluctant. They were like, should we create probably a different movie? Should we go ahead and create another alternative? And Lion King wouldn't do so well in terms of our audiences. But the makers pushed. They told that no, let's go ahead and create Lion King, and it will be a huge, huge hit. And like in today's day and age, the makers were right. Lion King, at that point of time, the first release was really famous, and even the second release with 3D animation was very, very famous. Now, since we've gone ahead and spoken all about animation, the types of animation, some famous animations, and the facts, we've come to the end of today's class. Now, before we end today's class, I want to go ahead and talk to you a little bit about two things. Firstly, your certificate program. Do not miss the chance of getting a certificate. You as a student are getting an opportunity to get the certificate. So take this chance. Go ahead and grab that certificate while you can. So for that, firstly, always go ahead and attend all of your classes. For example, this is a 4-part course, attend all 4 classes. Secondly, coming to your submissions, make sure you do all of your submissions, and automatically you will end up getting a certificate. Now, like I mentioned earlier, today's submission is going to be a little unique. We didn't do any form of drawing or illustration. It was all a very pictorial concept that we had and learning that we had today. So in the same lines, go ahead and click a picture right away. Go around your house, find some form of animation, click a picture and upload it. I want to see how creative you guys can get, because I, as a teacher, have some ideas, but I want you to blow my mind away. I want you to find something so unique that I also wouldn't have thought of, and I want to see that as part of your submission. Now, good work, everybody. Thank you so much for attending today's class. I had so much fun taking this animation course for you. Like I said, it was something that I really wanted to go ahead and teach you, and I finally got a chance to do so. Now, in the next class, we're going to be going ahead and talking about another fun topic. So I'll see you guys in that class. Till then, have a look at the submission video. Bye-bye.
Hi everyone, we are excited to have you here in today's fun-filled learning session at YOLO. Here is a quick look at how you can submit your work after the class. As a first step, go to live.yolo.com. You can use any browser to access this site. On this page, you will see a list of all our classes. Scroll down and you can see the Submit Your Work button. And then you will see a list of the classes that you've last attended, which could, for example, show the dance or craft or science experiment classes you've attended recently. Next, it will show you the list of children whose names are registered in this mobile number. Choose your name from this list to submit your work. For instance, if you are Satvik Kumar, choose that name. And then choose the class for which you would like to make your submission. For example, if you've attended the New Year's Masquerade Party session and you'd like to make the submission for this class, click on the Submit Your Work button below that. And then upload the photo you've taken. Choose the image from your phone and click Submit. You can scroll down and view all your past submissions and see how many of your friends or peers have liked your work. You can also see others' work and like their work to inspire your friends. If you want to showcase your work on social media, that too is very simple. Click on Share, copy the link and post it on Instagram or Facebook or any other platform of your choice. Just a tiny reminder, your submission looks a lot better if you could click a photo in the landscape mode rather than the portrait mode. Do not forget to tag us at YOLO_app. I'm eagerly looking forward to all your submissions right after this class.